Right in the heart of Beijing, it was the home of emperors for 500 years. It has witnessed China's major political events during imperial times and ever since. The Forbidden City, its 900 halls and palaces, constitute the largest wooden building complex in the world. And its palace museum houses a vast collection of imperial artworks and artifacts from Ming and Qing times. Watch The Forbidden City on Journeys in Time.
Matteo Ripa, an Italian priest who served the imperial court, wrote in his memoirs that Emperor Kangxi wished to be both a mathematician and a musician, and that although he did not have attainments in either field, he nevertheless liked them very much. Pedrini, therefore, composed some sonatas for the emperor, and under his guidance, a monograph of music theory entitled Annotations on Music was produced. Pedrini's sonatas were the first pieces of European music to be introduced to China. Emperor Kangxi spoke highly of the musician Theodoricus Pedrini and listened to him playing many times. He also sent some students to learn from Pedrini, and among them were two princes. Emperor Kangxi longs for knowledge all his life, and the ardent interest he showed in Western mathematics, physics and chemistry was the result of that contest over calendars he experienced in his youth. He told his ministers, "If I don't have understanding, how can I judge who is right and who is wrong? So I have to learn as much as possible." By this time, European countries had established associations and societies of sciences, and these had an impact on Emperor Kangxi, who established similar institutions at the imperial court to train scholars in mathematics and physics. On November the 28th, 1688, Emperor Kangxi received 6 French scientists, including Joachim Bouvet and Jean-François Gourbillon. They presented the emperor with 30 scientific instruments and a number of books as gifts, and the emperor was delighted. He asked them to serve as his advisors on science, and this was the beginning of decades in which foreign scientists worked in the Qing court. This horizontal equinoctial universal dial from England, a device that was commonly used in navigation, can measure time by the hour and minute, as well as the height between the sun and the ground. Ferdinand Verbiest was in charge of the Imperial Board of Astronomy from the 8th year of the reign of Emperor Kangxi, and at the same time was the emperor's first teacher in mathematics, astronomy and mechanics. Joachim Bouvet and his fellow countrymen got along very well with Emperor Kangxi, so much so that Bouvet wrote in his biography of Chinese Emperor Kangxi the following: "The emperor learned Western science with great interest. He spent several hours with us every day, and he spent more time on self-study." This hand calculating machine was made by the imperial court during the reign of Emperor Kangxi, just a few decades later than similar machines were made elsewhere in the world. Emperor Kangxi's interest in science and technology was such that he used this logarithmic table. Naturally, his interest in science and technology greatly boosted the development of science and technology during this period. He even sponsored a series of scientific and technological events. This instrument, made by the Office of Manufacture, was used by Emperor Kangxi in his study of astronomical mathematics. This horizontal semicircle sundial was also made by the Office of Manufacture. This is a part of Guangdong province in the Imperial Universal Geographic Map. Emperor Kangxi directed the survey in person using advanced techniques such as geodesic triangulation, and it was the first map of China to indicate exact latitude and longitude. This was one of the instruments used in the making of maps. In the late 17th century and early 18th century, at a time when nationwide surveys in European countries had not begun or were only in the very early stages, China was mapping its entire territory on an unprecedented scale. In one decade during the reign of Emperor Kangxi, a working team comprising both Westerners and Chinese worked together to create a complete map of the Qing Empire's vast territory. In the meantime, the country had become unified and stable, and China entered a new flourishing age. In 2005, an exhibition entitled Louis XIV, the Sun King, Versailles Treasures Special Exhibition, opened at the Meridian Gate as a response to the Emperor Kangxi exhibition held in Versailles Palace in France in January 2004. Louis XIV and Emperor Kangxi had longed to know each other. In letters to Kangxi, Louis XIV called him the most distinguished, the most brilliant, the strongest and the noblest emperor. And he put such adjectives as profound, devoted and sincere friend before signing his own name. This was the image of Emperor Kangxi in the mind of the French people. During Emperor Kangxi's time, cultural exchanges between the West and China were frequent. In his palace, the emperor set up studios for painters and sculptors and established workshops for making clocks and producing coloured enamels in the Office of Manufacture. This painting on a screen, entitled Maids in the Shade of the Tung Tree, is one of the oldest oil paintings in China, and it was executed by a court painter after he learnt oil painting techniques from Western missionaries. It was at this time that a Chinese culture fever appeared in Europe. A number of Western thinkers of the Enlightenment movement, including Voltaire in France and Leibniz in Germany, found a spiritual weapon in traditional Chinese culture which could be used in the fight against the theological teachings of the Middle Ages. Leibniz even discovered the principles of modern computers in the Book of Changes. Throughout the 18th century, almost every aspect of Western arts was influenced by Chinese art, with Chinese decoration styles becoming very popular among European aristocrats. Many of them decorated their manors in Chinese style and even had Chinese scenes painted on their walls. The era of Emperor Qianlong witnessed another climax in cultural exchange between the West and China. During the reign of Emperor Qianlong, this picture album of Yuan Mingyuan Garden was drawn. Early in the 18th century, Emperor Qianlong asked Michel Benoit, a French missionary, to build this group of Western-style buildings. The Lodge for Retired Life, a quiet spot in the garden of the Palace of Peace and Longevity, was built by Emperor Qianlong for himself after he retired from the throne, and inside it were exquisite interior decorations and fine furniture. Here, Western perspective and Chinese painting and decorative techniques were subtly combined, and the lodge showed the influence of Western culture that had come about during the emperor's reign. The Western-style buildings were not only appreciated by Emperor Qianlong, but also they were used as models by his ministers and the nobility. In several paintings for birthday celebrations executed in the Qing dynasty, we can see Western-style buildings. Missionaries had come to China bringing with them Western science and arts, and while their original intention of undertaking missionary work was gradually forgotten by the Chinese people, the culture they had brought had a widespread impact on China. In 1714, when 7 missionaries arrived in Guangzhou aboard a commercial ship, the local government submitted a memo to Emperor Kangxi. He ordered that those missionaries who had scientific skills be brought to Beijing, but that those who didn't be sent back to their home countries. But among those who stayed was Giuseppe Castiglione, a painter. This is the memo written by the governor of Guangdong reporting the arrival of the missionaries, and it bears comments in the handwriting of Emperor Kangxi. And so Giuseppe Castiglione went to Beijing and presented himself before Emperor Kangxi, who was so impressed by his painting talents that he asked him to learn Chinese painting. For 50 years, Castiglione served as a court painter under the reign of 3 emperors. This is the portrait of Emperor Yongzheng in Western clothes, painted by Giuseppe Castiglione. After Emperor Yongzheng ascended the throne, Giuseppe Castiglione was placed in even more important positions. In order to cater to the tastes of the emperor, he changed the Western oil painting techniques he used and incorporated traditional Chinese aesthetical concepts to create new works and new styles by using Chinese painting materials. Emperor Qianlong commented as follows on the portraits of himself and Emperor Yongzheng painted by Castiglione. Giuseppe Castiglione is good at portraying people, and he portrayed me in my childhood. These foreign painters could not just paint as they wished, of course. Almost all paintings by Castiglione were carried out according to the emperor's direct instructions. Most of Castiglione's paintings were about the emperor's achievements. Between the 20th year and the 26th year of the reign of Emperor Qianlong, 2 Jungu'er rebellions were put down by the imperial court. In order to commemorate the successful suppression of the Jungu'er rebellions, Emperor Qianlong asked his foreign painters to create works based on the event, and then the paintings were sent to Europe and made into engravings. 16 paintings were sent to France, where 7 of the best engravers made the engravings in work that lasted for 7 years. In the 38th year of the reign of Emperor Qianlong, 200 dry points, along with the original paintings and copper plates, were shipped back to China. The whole process lasted 11 years, but the emperor was satisfied with the result. This painting, entitled Envoys at the Qing Imperial Court and executed according to Emperor Qianlong's instructions, shows ambassadors from 27 countries having close ties with China. In September 2004, the Hall of Clocks in the Palace Museum was moved from the Hall of Preserving Harmony to the newly renovated Hall for the Worship of Ancestors, which used to be the ancestral temple where emperors of the Qing dynasty made offerings to their ancestors. The nearly 200 clocks and watches of the Qing court on display in this hall are beautiful in form and feature impressive craftsmanship. They represent the highest level of clockmaking in the world during the 18th century to the beginning of the 20th century. Mechanical clocks were first made in China in the late Ming dynasty, but clockmaking thrived during the reign of Emperor Kangxi, who had an office established to make and repair clocks. In Guangzhou, Fuzhou and some other cities on the middle and lower reaches of the Yangtze River, such as Nanjing, Suzhou and Yangzhou, clockmaking became popular. These clocks were made by the Office of Manufacture of the Qing court during the reign of Emperor Qianlong. Some clockmakers served inside the Forbidden City. Guangzhou was the only port open to foreign trade in the Qing dynasty, and it was also the non-governmental center of mechanical clockmaking. The clocks made in Guangzhou usually took the shape of a gourd, a symbol of good luck. Bright-colored enamels were widely used to decorate the clocks. In the middle of the Qing dynasty, the number of scientific instruments in the imperial palace decreased, while that of mechanical clocks and toys increased due to the personal tastes of Emperor Qianlong. Clocks were used to keep time, play music, and simply be present as ornamental objects. Foreign countries made clocks as articles of tribute to Emperor Qianlong to cater to his tastes. Clock with a man writing, the biggest toy clock in the imperial palace, is 231 centimeters high. A figure on the base can be seen writing Chinese characters, which mean His Majesty's influence reaches in all directions, and people pay respects to him from all over the land. As the figure writes, his head moves from left to right. And according to records, the idea of a Westerner writing Chinese characters with a brush pen came from Emperor Qianlong himself. Emperor Qianlong loved this clock and took it with him to his new dwelling place after he retired from the throne. This gold-plated copper clock with an elephant-drawn chariot depicts British troops marching to the battlefield. The trunk, tail and eyes of the elephant can move, and the wheels can roll. In fact, it can display so many tricks that people often forget it is a timepiece at all. The 18th century saw great advances in science and technology in Europe, where machine making was coming to the fore, particularly in England, where the best clocks were being made. The Qing court had accumulated huge wealth over its 100-odd years, and Emperor Qianlong used much of it to buy clocks from England. All the halls of the Forbidden City had English clocks, and so clocks from England became articles in hot demand from imperial relatives, the nobility and ministers. Zhao Lian, a member of the imperial family, made this comment: "The chime clocks made by Westerners are wonderful. Almost all officials have a chime clock in their house as a plaything." Foreign trade was growing, and the channels of exchange between China and the West were greatly expanding, creating conditions suitable for the introduction of science and technology from Europe. The personal preferences of Kangxi and other Qing emperors promoted the introduction of Western objects into the imperial court. But they were treated more as playthings than scientific achievements, so although Western clocks were placed in almost every corner of the Forbidden City, they did not keep the empire abreast with progress in Western countries. Today, these clocks are displayed in the Hall of Ancestral Worship, where they were once worshipped along with the ancestors of the emperors of the Qing dynasty. In the late Qing dynasty, some new scientific inventions from the West, such as the electric light and telephone, were introduced into the Forbidden City. Even Western-style food and entertainment passed through its gates. All of these enriched the life of the emperor, but, just as with his attitude to clocks, the master of the palace treated the modern achievements of civilization as simply objects of amusement. Western powers, on the other hand, were using these achievements to build warships and cannons, which would be used to force China to open its doors. For a time, the Forbidden City became an exhibition hall of Western articles of tribute and a crimson-walled cage of advanced science and technology in which many accomplished craftsmen were confined. Today, as this first piece of Western music ever introduced into China is played in the Forbidden City, it is in an era in which exchange and development have become the most popular tune. And certainly, stories about people and events over a period of several hundred years in the Forbidden City can give us answers to some of the mysteries of history.
Right in the heart of Beijing, it was the home of emperors for 500 years. It has witnessed China's major political events during imperial times and ever since. The Forbidden City, its 900 halls and palaces, constitute the largest wooden building complex in the world. And its palace museum houses a vast collection of imperial artworks and artifacts from Ming and Qing times. Watch the Forbidden City on Journeys in Time.